You won't recall every one of my champagne dilemmas? I won't remember all my champagne problems. The skies must have pitied Alex Mitchell that night as the pitter-patter of rain greeted me as I solemnly walked towards the train platform. I was awaiting my 9:30 p.m. train, a ticket booked at the last minute. I had chosen the train back to campus that night because I didn't trust myself to keep a clear mind for the hour-long drive from my family home in Rocker back to my dorm. I needed this. I needed time to process what had just unfolded. I needed to brace myself for what awaited me when I returned to my university quarters. At the back of my head, I knew I must have looked pathetic because the child who sat across from me after we boarded the train would not stop staring at me. Was it the puffiness and redness around my eyes? Was it my seemingly lifeless eyes just downright tired at this point? I didn't know. I watched as raindrops splattered across the window as the train journeyed away from Rocker. I should have been relieved, leaving behind the town that had left me despondent beyond words, but I wasn't. I even dreaded what awaited me back at Queenstown University. Would my group of friends console me? Or would they give me the space I evidently needed? I didn't know what was worse. I didn't know what I wanted. I had lost direction. My boyfriend of almost 4 years, Evan Reynolds, had uttered those words. "I'm so sorry that night. Tonight should have ended differently." For months, I had been envisioning how our life would change after I finally proposed to Evan. I thought we could throw an intimate engagement party, just our immediate family and closest friends in attendance. Our schedules would have permitted it, as Queenstown had just finished its examinations for the winter semester, and Christmas break was next. So they were both pretty free. I even imagined the moment I would change my Facebook status from in a relationship with Evan Reynolds to engaged to Evan Reynolds. But life took an unexpected turn. He was going to change my relationship status indeed, but not to announce being engaged, but rather to welcome the cold embrace of singlehood. My sister Olivia disguised a marriage proposal as a supposed party celebrating her recent promotion. Olivia worked for a marketing firm and had recently been promoted to junior executive. So this was a believable excuse to celebrate. Evan didn't ask any questions, and I was under the impression that he was excited to see his family that night. To Evan's astonishment, some of his closest colleagues were present in the Mitchell household that night in Rocker. At first, Evan might have been skeptical, but he danced the night away with me and chatted animatedly with his friends. The song Enchanted was purposely playing as we had our slow dance with other couples present. I had deliberately led him to the center of the room in anticipation of my proposal. "Evan," I whispered hours after it happened. It still stung. My life had indeed changed, but not for the better, as I had expected before the rejected marriage proposal. "Please, Evan," I begged. But Evan replied with a severed cry and left me standing at the gazebo like a fool. He showed me up in front of our families and our dearest friends. He rejected me because he didn't want to spend the rest of his life with me. As I sat in the train, feeling the velvet ring box in my pocket, I couldn't fully process Evan's reaction. The ring box felt heavy. It served as a reminder of what could have been weeks ago. I had just expressed my desire to give him Grandma's ring. "I really want to give him Grandma's ring, Mom," I had said weeks earlier. "Then give it," Sophia affirmed. At this point, I had told all of my immediate family members and some of my closest friends about my plan. I was that confident of Evan's affirmative answer. Sophia was ecstatic beyond words, pumped that one of her children would finally tie the knot. She was even more elated to know that Grandma Mitchell's ring, which she had inherited and subsequently passed down to me, would be the engagement ring. She knew how important Evan was to me, and vice versa. Over the years, she saw how the two of us grew, how we developed from shy high school seniors with feelings for each other into a couple deeply in love throughout our college years. People in Rocker were not as supportive from the very beginning of our relationship. Many doubted the depth of Evan's love for me, rumors claiming that I was significantly more invested in our relationship than he was. Others pitied Evan and firmly believed that his history of mental health issues held him back from loving me wholeheartedly. But I didn't care. All I wanted was a warm, loving home with Evan. I was looking forward to graduating from Queenstown that summer and starting a life away from Rocker. Janet from down the street and Mala, a few houses down the block, didn't experience the love that Evan and I shared. They didn't know about the nights I held Evan as he cried, his demons plaguing his mind. They didn't share the fun times at the Queenstown yard, walking hand in hand and braving the cold school days together. Ours was a love you had to experience to understand. So despite the skeptical onlookers' comments, I ignored them. Our love was much too strong to be affected by their heresies and judgmental remarks. As I fished out my wallet to check if I had enough cash for a bus ride back to campus, I saw a picture of a smiling Evan. It was a Polaroid picture that I had taken over 2 years ago. It pained me to see that dimpled smile, knowing that I might never see it directed at me again. But he left me standing at the gazebo like a fool. He showed me up in front of our families and our dearest friends. He rejected me because he didn't want to spend the rest of his life with me. Another voice in my head countered as the events of that night unfolded in my mind again. Alex Mitchell soon realized he did not go wrong. In the years to come, he would find a gorgeous red-headed man who also worked at the same tech company as he did. He would hold that man's hand and not let go as they danced the night away. He would propose using Grandma Mitchell's ring heirloom, and his partner would eagerly say yes. I, on the other hand, couldn't muster up the courage to stand up to my father. We fell into an old routine, one that I had been accustomed to since I was 7, when my father started drinking heavily. I also never returned to school, choosing to care for my weakening mother and drunken father instead. Evan soon forgot about me, although the scars that I left still lingered and stung every now and then. But Evan was happy, and I couldn't say the same. I was at an all-time low. I soon took to drinking to ease my worries, and that's how my story ends, with the skies still pitying me, a man who couldn't change his fate. I continued to live in Rocker, a town that seemed to embody my stagnation. Days blurred into nights, and my routine became monotonous. I worked my minimum wage job during the day and numbed my pain with alcohol at night. It was as though I was stuck in a perpetual loop of despair. As time passed, my mother's health deteriorated further, and my father's drinking only worsened. I tried to be the rock for my mother, taking care of her as best as I could. It was a heavy burden to carry, but I couldn't bear to see her suffer. Despite the rejection and heartbreak, I couldn't forget the love I had shared with Alex. The memories of our time together haunted me, and I found myself reminiscing about the good times we had shared. The laughter, the late-night conversations, the dreams of a future together, all of it played on a loop in my mind. One evening, as I sat alone in my dimly lit living room, nursing a half-empty bottle of whiskey, I received a phone call. It was my friend Sarah from college, one of the few friends who had stuck by me even after everything had fallen apart. "Hey Evan, how are you holding up?" she asked, her concern evident in her voice. I sighed, taking a sip of whiskey before responding, "I'm surviving, Sarah. It's been tough, you know? I can't even imagine what you've been through," she said empathetically. "But I wanted to tell you something. We're having a small get-together next week. Some of our old college friends will be there. It would be great to catch up." I hesitated for a moment. The thought of facing our old friends, the ones who had witnessed my public rejection, was daunting. But a part of me longed for a connection, for a chance to escape the loneliness that had consumed me. "Okay, Sarah," I finally replied. "I'll be there." The days leading up to the gathering were filled with anxiety and anticipation. I couldn't help but wonder how my friends would react when they saw me. Would they pity me? Would they offer condolences? Or would they simply pretend that nothing had happened? When the day arrived, I put on a brave face and made my way to the venue. As I entered the room, I was met with a mix of surprised and warm smiles. It seemed that my friends were genuinely happy to see me. The evening passed in a blur of conversations and laughter. We reminisced about our college days, sharing stories and inside jokes. It was as though for a brief moment I had been transported back in time to a happier, simpler period in my life. As the night wore on, I found myself talking to Mark, one of my closest friends from college. He had always been perceptive and had a way of getting to the heart of the matter. "Evan," he said, his tone gentle, "I can't even begin to imagine what you've been through, but I want you to know something. You deserve happiness, and you deserve love." His words struck a chord within me. I had spent so long wallowing in self-pity and regret that I had forgotten my own worth. Maybe it was time to start rebuilding my life, to find a way to heal and move forward. As the night came to a close, I said my goodbyes and headed home. The weight on my shoulders hadn't magically disappeared, but for the first time in a long while, I felt a glimmer of hope. The road to recovery would be long and challenging, but I was determined to take those first steps toward healing. In the weeks that followed, I sought therapy to address the demons that had haunted me for so long. I reconnected with old hobbies and interests, rediscovering the parts of myself that had been buried beneath the pain. Life in Rocker remained unchanged, but I was changing. I was learning to let go of the past, to forgive not only Alex but also myself. And as I looked toward an uncertain future, I knew that one day I would find the love and happiness I deserved. The skies that had once pitied me now held the promise of a brighter tomorrow, and I was ready to embrace it. Months turned into years as I continued my journey of self-discovery and healing in Rocker. Therapy had become a constant in my life, helping me confront my inner demons and work through the pain I had carried for so long. Slowly but surely, the wounds began to scab over, and I could see a future beyond the heartache that had once consumed me. My mother's health continued to decline, and I devoted myself to being her caregiver. It was a challenging role, one that tested my patience and strength daily. But I couldn't bear to see her suffer, and I knew she needed me now more than ever. One crisp autumn afternoon, as I was tending to the garden outside our modest home, my mother called out to me from the porch. Her voice was weak, but there was a sense of urgency in her tone. "Evan, come here, please," she said, her eyes fixed on something in the distance. I rushed over to her side, concerned. "What is it, Mom? Are you okay?" She pointed to a vibrant rainbow that arched across the sky, its colors vivid against the backdrop of gray clouds. It was a breathtaking sight, one that seemed almost magical. "Look at that, Evan," she whispered, her eyes glistening with tears. "It's a sign of hope and beauty even in the midst of darkness." I watched the rainbow with my mother, and for a moment it felt as though time had stood still. In that simple yet profound moment, I realized that life was full of unexpected beauty, even in the most challenging of times. As the years went by, my mother's condition worsened, and I knew that her time with me was limited. We spent our days talking, sharing stories, and cherishing the moments we had left together. She had always been my rock, my source of strength, and her unwavering love had carried me through the darkest of days. One evening, as I sat by her bedside, holding her frail hand, she looked at me with a soft smile. "Evan, my dear, you've come so far," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm proud of the man you've become." Tears welled up in my eyes as I leaned in to kiss her forehead. "Thank you, Mom, for everything. You've been my guiding light." She closed her eyes, her breathing steady. "Remember, my love, life is full of rainbows. Even when the storms are fierce, find your rainbow, Evan." In the quiet of that room, I held my mother's hand as she took her final breaths. Her passing left an emptiness in my heart, but her words lingered like a comforting melody. In the years that followed, I honored my mother's memory by dedicating myself to making the world a better place. I became involved in local charities, helping those in need just as my mother had taught me. It was through these acts of kindness that I found solace and purpose. One sunny afternoon, as I was volunteering at a local shelter, I met a man named Daniel. He had a warm smile and a kind heart, and we quickly became friends. Over time, our friendship blossomed into something more, and I couldn't help but feel that fate had brought us together. Daniel was patient and understanding, and he helped me let go of the pain of the past. Together, we faced life's challenges and celebrated its joys. It was a love that felt different from anything I had experienced before, a love that was built on trust, compassion, and mutual support. As we walked hand in hand one evening, the sky painted with the colors of a breathtaking sunset, I thought of my mother's words about finding rainbows in the midst of life's storms. With Daniel by my side, I had found my rainbow, a beacon of hope and love that illuminated my path forward. Life in Rocker had transformed from a place of painful memories into a place of healing and new beginnings. I knew that my mother was watching over me, her spirit a reminder that love in all its forms could light up even the darkest of days. And so, as I looked toward the horizon, I was filled with gratitude for the journey that had brought me to this moment. I had learned that love could endure, that healing was possible, and that life's rainbows would always find a way to shine through.